When the Quincy return and begin their second invasion of the Soul Society, transforming the entire Sternritter into the Quincy's Wandenreich city, several fascinating encounters take place. One of my favorite battles from this part of the story is Kenpachi vs the Sternritter Gremmy. This is a fascinating battle between the self-proclaimed strongest Sternritter versus the strongest Shinigami. This is the first proper battle that we see Kenpachi take part in following his training with Unohana. We see him battle one of the most interesting Sternritters who has the power to imagine anything into reality. So in this video, I will be breaking down and analyzing their battle, understanding the transformations and abilities exhibited by both Kenpachi and Gremmy, as well as explaining why Gremmy was killed despite him having one of the most broken abilities within Bleach. Before the video begins, only 12% of the people who watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. Gremmy first encounters Yachiru and Isane within chapter 572. He reveals that he has killed Kensei and Rose. The Quincy dodges an attack from Yachiru and then imagines her bones to be made up of cookies, explaining to her that the power of imagination is the most powerful thing in the world. It is here where we learn that Gremmy has the power to imagine anything into reality. Kenpachi then intervenes after sensing Yachiru's spiritual pressure was dropping. It is to be noted here that Gremmy states that Kenpachi appears to be just as strong as he had imagined. The ground beneath Kenpachi elevates up into the air as Gremmy creates a grand stage for their battle. Gremmy the visionary introduces himself as he tells him that he is lucky to be facing him, since he believes himself to be the strongest Sternritter. Kenpachi immediately strikes Gremmy, but once again he reminds Kenpachi as well as us about his power, stating that the power of imagination is the most powerful thing in the world. In order to defend himself from Kenpachi's attack, he imagines that his body is harder than steel. However, Kenpachi still effortlessly cuts him down as he explains that there is nothing he cannot cut. He confidently boasts about being able to cut steel and how his imagination cannot create anything that he can't cut, because after all, he is Kenpachi, the strongest Shinigami. In chapter 574, Gremmy uses his power to imagine that his wounds are already healed after being cut across his shoulder. Gremmy very condescendingly assumes that Kenpachi's the type to usually be unable to understand a power until he is defeated by it. The Sternritter is so confident with his own power that he states he won't even have to use his fingers to defeat him. He will only use what is within his head to end the battle. He ends up creating lava from his imagination, but we see that Kenpachi wholeheartedly embraces the illogical nature of Gremmy's power. After learning that Yachiru's bones have been turned into cookies, he charges towards him, but he then finds himself trapped in a suspended cube of water. Gremmy explains that the air that he has jumped into was already water, saying out loud what he has imagined, which ends up turning into reality only seconds later. He then imagines that Kenpachi will struggle in the water and fall into the cracks in the ground, which will close up and crush him. He is aware that Kenpachi won't die from being crushed, and instead he hopes that he will be defeated if he is crushed while being underwater, relying on the fact that he won't be able to breathe. Gremmy plans to trap and crush Kenpachi underwater for about an hour, which even a monster like Kenpachi will be unable to survive. However, Kenpachi breaks free as he demonstrates that he can defy Gremmy's expectations. He grabs Yachiru and then taunts him, because if she can be held by him, then it means that her bones have returned to normal. And this is because the Sternritter was so caught up with fighting Kenpachi, he was unable to use his brain to continue imagining Yachiru's bones as cookies. Gremmy is surprised that his opponent was able to notice that his ability was interrupted with Yachiru, but Kenpachi states that it was fairly obvious he would eventually struggle to keep it going, especially while battling him. He goes on to confirm if he is the strongest Quincy, and if he would in turn want to crush the strongest Shinigami. When you analyze Gremmy's character, you understand quickly that he believes he has been given the strongest ability, and with this there is nobody that he cannot defeat. And this is why he doesn't take shortcuts with his power, like imagining his opponent to be dead. He wants to be challenged by them, hence why he is entertaining this battle against Kenpachi. Now, with no distractions, their battle truly commences within chapter 575. Gremmy thinks about what Kenpachi had just said, as he admits that he has never thought about crushing anyone else, even others who claim to be the strongest, because in the past nobody had ever dared to lay a finger on him. Because of this, it was apparent to him that he was the strongest. Gremmy had never felt the need to prove this by defeating somebody else, else, but he is suddenly compelled with this feeling of wanting to crush Kenpachi. He maniacally smiles while conjuring several rifles, which fire ammunition towards him, even missiles, but after defending himself, Kenpachi notes how Gremmy had to use his hands in order to shield himself from one of the missile's blasts. This taunt leads to Gremmy making a bloodthirsty expression, as Kenpachi states that finally his Zanpakuto will now be able to enjoy the battle. The Sternritter thinks to himself that he is unsure of the look that he is making with his face, but he knows that he is overjoyed by the thrill of the battle, as Kenpachi attacks through his barrier once again, cutting through his shoulder. Gremmy creates a hand in order to crush him, but Kenpachi effortlessly blasts through it, breaking free from it, as he then cuts across Gremmy's body, exclaiming that he was too slow to evade him. He thinks to himself that he was far too slow in realizing that he was cut, and if he is delayed in noticing his injury, then he would be late to heal himself, which will lead to him being unable to make his next move in time. With this series of delays building up, Kenpachi has the opportunity to make his next attack, as he cuts Gremmy across the body once again. In utter disbelief, the Quincy wonders why he is unable to stop his sword, as he questions if Kenpachi really believes that he can beat him. He wonders if he is actually going to lose to him. Gremmy's train of thought here almost leads to his death, as he is about to imagine the possibility of defeat. After Kenpachi comments on how he isn't resisting much to his attacks, he taunts him that if he has imagined himself losing already. Gremmy heals himself and thanks him for the taunt, which has helped him to come back to his senses, as he now declares that he will never die. Gremmy creates a doppelganger, which he explains to be a real copy of himself, as his ability the Visionary allows him to use his imagination to even create an all-new life. By creating this copy, he has doubled the power of his imagination, which allows him to summon a giant meteor to fall down from the sky. He is about to destroy the entire Seritate, as he states that only he will be left standing after the dust settles. Kenpachi is excited at the prospect of cutting a meteor, as he calls out to his Zanpakuto Nozarashi. Gremmy states that even if Kenpachi defeats him right now, it would be meaningless, because the meteor is already a reality now, so it will not go away even after the Sternritter is defeated. He plans on being the only one alive after the meteor strikes, as he intends to make Kenpachi feel helpless. However, Kenpachi laughs at the notion of helplessness as he activates his Shikai, which reduces the giant meteor to dust. Gremmy is stunned to realize that he was able to destroy the meteor with only a single swing, as Kenpachi reminds him that there is nothing that he cannot cut. He then creates multiple copies of himself, as he intends to defeat Kenpachi by using something without a form. He creates a void of outer space around his opponent, as he explains how Kenpachi's bodily fluids will evaporate out of his eyes and his oral cavity within outer space, going on to describe how the blood exposed to outer space will begin to boil from his wounds. If he tries to breathe, his lungs will collapse and eventually his biotissue will disintegrate, leading to his slow death. Shockingly, Kenpachi rush attacks him by cutting him in two, exclaiming that he has forgotten to harden his body, but a large explosion erupts behind Kenpachi, and Gremmy is surprised that he is still standing, as he admits that Kenpachi is in fact a monster. The Sternritter realizes that the only way to defeat Kenpachi is to become stronger than him. His desire and his want to win becomes so desperate, and the first time in the Quincy's life, he has finally found an opponent worthy of him wanting to beat. He tells him that he will crush him and prove just how strong he is, and while imagining being stronger than Kenpachi, Gremmy's body begins to rip apart, as Kenpachi comments on how Gremmy had turned him into the image of a monster within his mind, and it was this monster that had ended up killing him. During his final moments, Gremmy thinks to himself if he was in fact killed by his own imagination, but he realizes that he was able to envision the entirety of Kenpachi's power, but it was actually too much for his body to contain. Gremmy then realizes that the only thing that can withstand this incredible amount of power is Kenpachi's own body. His imagination was perfect, but it was his body that was flawed. We learned that Gremmy's body was a product of his imagination, as he really was fighting without laying a single finger on Kenpachi. In chapter 579, after he is defeated and his body fades away, we see his brain encased within a glass container, which reveals his true form. Gremmy's death had actually foreshadowed aspects of Kenpachi's incredible power, especially his Bankai transformation. Gremmy died because he had tried to imitate the full extent of Kenpachi's power, which we later learn even Kenpachi had struggled to contain after activating his own Bankai during his battle against Gerard. You see Kenpachi's arm rupture because it cannot control the increase of his Reiatsu. Gremmy had ultimately failed and died after trying to contain a level of power
power that was stronger than Kenpachi's. This is why I think that Gremmy's defeat foreshadows Kenpachi's Bankai transformation and the true extent of his power. In the end, Gremmy may have been the strongest Quincy, but he was unable to match the full potential of Kenpachi, the strongest Shinigami. Gremmy had never been challenged by anyone like Kenpachi before. He had tried to surpass him using his brute force, but he was unable to think of anything stronger than him. Gremmy could have imagined Kenpachi dead like he had done with Kensei and Rose, but he was too arrogant, as he had assumed that he could defeat Kenpachi easily with his power, the Visionary, which he had believed to be the strongest power. We know that Gremmy wasn't let out of his room much, so his imagination was very limited from the start. And additionally, within the Can't Be Your Own World light novels, it is revealed that Gremmy's brain had stopped functioning properly, which had affected his ability to imagine, thus explaining why he was unable to heal himself after his body had started to tear apart. His arrogance and belief that his power could defeat anyone or anything was the reason for Gremmy's untimely demise. If you were to ask me, this is one of my favorite battles during the second invasion of the Quincy. The Visionary is a truly formidable power, and I really look forward to seeing how it will be depicted within the second core of the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime. We have now reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What were your thoughts about this amazing battle? Did you enjoy Kenpachi vs Gremmy as much as I did? Do you think that Kubo did justice to Gremmy's character, as well as explaining how he was defeated despite him having a pretty hack's power? I know there was some controversy about Gremmy's character and how he was defeated, with some fans being disappointed by the fight, so I'm interested to read all of your thoughts about this battle. Lastly, thank you as always for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach Explained video.
If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.